This is Pet Life Radio. Let's talk pets.
Welcome to the Human-Animal Connection Show, where we believe we can communicate with all animals. Join us as we explore the 33 principles and healing methods of the human-animal connection. As animal lovers, we know that you share our commitment to making the world a kinder place for all creatures. Together, let's embrace the transformative healing power of the human-animal connection.
Hi, everyone. It's Jeannie Joseph, Executive Director and host of the podcast, The Human-Animal Connection. So glad you're with us today. I have Ellie Laks, and she's the founder of The Gentle Barn. And this is a wonderful place where they do work with rescue farm animals, different animals, and bring people in to have wonderful experiences. And as you know, in the Human-Animal Connection, we work with our therapy donkeys and our therapy dogs. And we've just been wanting to trade stories with each other. And we thought we'd just have a show where we just tell some stories, some things that just come to mind about the glorious, wonderful moments of our work with animals. So, Ellie, say hi to everyone.
Hello, I'm so happy to be here, and these stories are amazing. It really illustrates how magical animals are, how much they have to offer, and how much we all as humans can benefit from them. So I'm excited about this episode.
Yeah, great. So what's your first story that you want to tell us?
I'm having trouble picking a story because I have so many.
Yeah, I know, that's hard.
But I do have an amazing story that it's one of my favorites. We had a turkey. We like to bring her to events. So we brought her to all kinds of different events where people could pet her and snuggle with her, and she would fall asleep in people's laps, and she would really show people who turkeys are. But one particular event we brought her to, there was a band there about 100 feet away. And as the band started playing, she immediately raced as fast as she could over to the stage. And I'm following her going, oh my God, where is she going? She's never done this before. And I'm like racing after this turkey. And she ran until she was front row center.
Oh.
And she closed her eyes and she started swaying to the music.
Oh.
And I was so in shock by watching this that I sat down on one of the folded chairs and literally watched my turkey sway to the music for 3 hours. And people would come and they would like gather around her and everybody would dance. And now she's dancing with all these people. And I watched this go on for 3 hours until the band finally broke for lunch.
Wow.
When they finally stopped playing, she opened her eyes and she looked back at me like, oh my God, we got to get to our booth. And she locked herself back to the booth.
Oh, how fun. That's
and then and then she let people cuddle and sit with her for the rest of the day. So when we got home that day, I was like, oh my God, we have to have a radio in the barnyard for her. And so we did. We set up a radio, and no matter what kind of genre of music was playing, she was always planted right next to the radio with her eyes closed, swaying to the music.
Oh.
So around that same time, we had a group of high school boys and girls who had either physical disabilities or emotional differences, stuff that they were all individually working on. And they came as a group to participate in our year-long peace enhancement program. And the first time they got there, I picked up one of our chickens and I kind of went to each person individually to see if they wanted to pet her or even hold her. When I got to this last teenager, as I was about to offer her the chicken, the counselors jumped in front of her and said, no, don't offer her the chicken. She's a very violent girl. She scratches us and bites us. She's very violent in the school and in the home. Please don't give her the chicken. But we have a rule at the Gentle Barn that every single person could define who they are for themselves in that moment. I don't care what they've gone through. I don't care what they've done. I don't care what's said about them. In the moment where they're standing on Gentle Barn soil, they can tell me who they are. So I explained this to the counselors and they kind of rolled their eyes and said, okay, it's on you if the chicken gets hurt. And they walked away. So I asked this girl if she wanted to pet the chicken. She had a huge smile on her face and she nodded yes. And she pet the chicken and she was delightful that entire day.
Oh,
well, later on, I learned about her that she was actually mute and she has not said a word in 12 years. So it became my mission in life to help her speak. I was asking the counselors, what was she like before she stopped speaking? And they said that she loved to sing and dance. And I was like, well, I have a turkey that likes to sing and
Oh,
Well, I invited this beautiful teenage girl to come and sit next to me while I sang to our turkey. And I explained to her the importance of music for this turkey. So for 3 months, she stroked the turkey and sat next to me with a huge smile on her face while I sang out loud. But by the 4th month, she started humming along with me. By the 5th month, she started singing. And by the time she graduated our program, she was fully vocal, both in the classroom, at the Gentle Barn, and at home. And it's because of this little girl or teenager and our turkey and their shared love of music.
oh, that is so beautiful. That is so beautiful. I know there's so many wonderful stories about music and animals, and you just never know what kind of music they're gonna like. And I know, like, people who do competitive dog dancing, dancing with their dogs, they'll tell you that you can't train a dog to dance to a song the dog doesn't like.
I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah, right, exactly. So they'll try different styles, and some like salsa, and some like mariachi. You just never know what they're gonna like. But in our class, Canines Teach Compassion, where we bring the therapy dogs to work with high school students who are in counseling in the classroom, and we have them sing lullabies to the kids. Just we'll use the dog's name a lot in the song, and then just make up the words to Brahms' lullaby, whatever. And it's so beautiful because we teach the kids that, oh, you're doing this to help the dogs relax, which is true. The dogs go completely just, sleepy and relaxed. But of course, it's helping the kids relax, because nothing like singing a lullaby to a sweet little thing, to make both you and the animal feel good. So that's just a lovely thing to do to bring. So I hope people listening will maybe try that with their animals, like with my dog, Sophia. So I'll say, I can't sing, but and I'll model this to students. I said, I can't sing at all, but Sophia, I love you. You're my sweetest of doggies, and I love you. Yes, I love you. You're my little Sophia. So it's important to use their name in the song a lot if they know their name. And it's just a wonderful thing to do. So try that at home. Try singing to the animals who share your lives.
It's really, really interesting because as an animal communicator, I talk to animals for clients all over the world. And not all the time, but many times, the dog or the animal will talk about the person singing a special song to them, or playing special music in the background, or meditating with specific music. They are absolutely aware of singing and music, and there are animals that really love it very, very much.
Yeah, that's great. And if you're putting music on for your animal when you leave, make sure that you know that that's the style that they like, because there are a lot of uniquenesses. Some animals like classical, some like new age, some like different things. So make sure that you are certain that that's what they like before you leave it on. That's a great.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point, because of course there are animals that prefer it quiet and don't like the noise or don't like the genre of music. And imagine being stuck at home for 4 hours listening to music that you hate. That's really, really important to know that your animal enjoys the music and what kind they like. Very good point.
One of my early stories with animal communication was when I was living in New York City. I was in the movie business. I was a totally type A person. I had no animals or anything like this. And I started having these dreams that I was going to get a cat. And it was like, what? How am I going to do this with my 14-hour days? It's just like, I just couldn't see it. Finally, I said, okay, well, if I'm going to get a cat, the cat's just going to come to me. And I said that and forgot about it. So one night, middle of the winter, New York City, 25 degrees, and I hear a sound. I lived in the ground floor apartment in the back, and I hear the sound. It sounded like someone was trying to break in my window, which had happened. So it was really scary. So I yell all kinds of things, which I won't yell here because, but anyway, so I yell at this thing and I hear, meow, this tiny little sound. And I go, oh no, I don't have anything. I don't have a cat box. I don't have litter. I don't have food. I had some milk. So I said, all right, it's so cold. I'm just going to go out, open the door, give this cat some milk and go back to bed. You got to get up early. Got a big shoot tomorrow. So I, open the door, put the milk down. The cat walks right by the milk and right inside my door. Like, this is my home. This little tiny thing, it was not like a tiny kitten, but like a teenage kitten. It was just amazing, that this cat, who I named Wolfie, and Wolfie was with me for 16 years. And when it was time, that it was getting to be that time, Wolfie told me, gave me about a year or two notice because I was so attached. This was my soul cat, About a year or two, Wolfie said, I'm going to be going. And another cat stray kind of found us kind of in a similar way. And Wolfie said to me, like it was that time the vet was saying, well, I think we should make the appointment for euthanasia. And I didn't feel right. And I said, well, maybe I should just ask Wolfie what he feels. And he said to me, well, I want to go at home with you. And he gave me the date. He said, I'm going to go between 3 and 5 a.m. And that's exactly what happened. So he went at exactly that time in my arms. So I was able to be with him. And it was just really beautiful. And, I'm not against euthanasia when it's needed, but it was really important to ask the animal what their preferences are and so that you can feel complete, because it really helped me knowing that I had honored his wishes. That made a big deal to me. Yeah.
No, I'm so glad that you shared that story because you bring up so many good points. Look, here's the truth. Animals are blessed with euthanasia, that they don't have to suffer. They don't have to go through elongated struggles and illnesses, that we get to set them free when they're ready to go. But there are times when euthanasia is overused or used too early. Because just because we have euthanasia doesn't mean that animals can't still pass on their own when they want to. And I have a number of animals that I talk to as an animal communicator. And yeah, sometimes they say, oh my God, I'm done. This is terrible. I got to get out of here. And then you set them free. Other times they ask for more time and they say, even though I look like a mess, I don't want to leave yet. I'm not ready. But then other times they'll say, I am ready, but I don't want help. I want to pass on my own. And when animals want that, it's such a blessing to give them that.
Yes, absolutely.
And animals will say like, well, here's my bucket list, or here's who I want to be there, or here's the tree I want to lay under. They have wishes, and it's wonderful when we can fulfill them.
Yes, it is absolutely beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. We can do that. So I want to tell a little story about Oscar, who was my first therapy dog. And he had been, literally a prisoner of war. He had been forced to be a pig hunter in Hawaii, where they starved them to make them more aggressive, so really, really rough circumstance. He escaped with this was many years ago, a very expensive GPS collar. It was, hundreds and hundreds of dollars at those times. And they didn't even, they didn't come and get him. So I was working with him at the shelter. He had been past his due date. It was a kill shelter in those days. And finally I took him home. And he became just the most amazing therapy. He was the gentlest, sweetest dog, even though he'd been through scars all over his body, missing teeth, the sweetest dog I had ever met. And I was working with soldiers with PTSD who were hospitalized, and they would sit in a circle and he would go around, say hello to each one. He could tell if someone was afraid, he would just skip that person. But he would go and sit. He would do what's called an alert, which is he would sit and just look at the person who was suicidal. He knew. And he would just look at them until they melted, until they got down on their knees and started making baby talk and, loving this little guy. And he just had that ability. I was able to find out from the nurses he was 100% right, because I didn't know anyone's story or anything. But he knew. He could tell the difference between who was, who needed a little extra love that day. And that's what really began my journey with working with therapy animals was Oscar, was his ability to smell suicidality was so important. This was the early days of the war, 2010. So, it was not really being talked about, and soldiers didn't want to mention it because they could lose their status in the military if they admitted that. And so it was really helpful to have a dog who knew just who needed what.
Oh, that's so beautiful. And these animals really do know. They can see inside a person in ways that we can't. At the Gentle Barn, we work with kids from foster agencies or on probation or from drug and alcohol rehab centers or people from domestic violence shelters, homeless shelters, war veteran centers, and hurting individuals that are not in agencies. And we never ask for their file. We never ask to speak to someone beforehand. We don't want to know about them. We just want them to come and experience the animals. And we know 100% that those animals will know exactly what to do. And they always, always do. We had a beautiful racehorse named Mama Deer. And because she was raised in the racing industry, she wasn't very warm and fuzzy with kind of me and my staff. We would try to groom her and scratch her and massage her. And after 5 minutes, she'd be like, all right, already, like enough. But the teenagers would come and she would hold still for them for hours. They could crawl underneath her. They could hug her. They can lay on top of her. They could do whatever they wanted. And she would not move because she knew that they needed her. And even our cows in our cow hug therapy sessions, if someone is just too serious, they'll lick them or prance around or do something silly and funny to make them laugh. If someone is really flighty and kind of stuck in their head, they will meditate with them to ground them and center them. And when someone is in real trauma, like suicidal ideations or PTSD or in real loss and grief, they will literally wrap their necks around them and hold them for hours. They know exactly what that person needs. And all we have to do is facilitate their interaction.
Wow, beautiful. So beautiful. They are so wise.
Yeah.
So wise. We're going to take a short little break. When we come back, you're going to hear more wonderful stories from Ellie Laks, founder of The Gentle Barn, and Jeannie Joseph, the Human Animal Connection. We'll be right back.
Hey friends, if you like what you're hearing and want to learn more, check out Dr. Joseph's book, The Human Animal Connection, Deepening Relationships with Animals and Ourselves. Or visit the website, thehumananimalconnection.org, to book an online consultation. Thank you for loving animals. Now back to the show.
Let's Talk Pets on PetLifeRadio.com.
Welcome back to the Human Animal Connection podcast. So Ellie, we were talking on the break. You said your horse was kind of coming in and giving you this feeling that he wanted his story told. So tell us about Whisper.
Yeah, I keep thinking about Whisper, and it's almost like she's in my ear going, tell my story, tell my story. Her birthday, or what would have been her birthday, is coming up. So I think she would love for me to tell her story. Whisper has a very, very long, kind of painful story that she actually doesn't like when I tell it. So I'm going to tell her story the way she likes me to tell her story. Whisper is extraordinarily resilient, very brave, very strong. She has gone through enormous trauma and come out the other side victorious. She was very angry when she came to the Gentle Barn, and we had to work extensively on helping her. And one of the first things is she had no trust for us. She was very, very, very angry because she had been through enormous emotional, mental, and physical abuse. She had cigar burns on her butt. She had holes on either side from the spurs. She had her chest rubbed raw from the saddle strap. She had no confidence or belief in anyone, and she felt completely alone in the world. So the first thing that I had to do was I had to show her that I trusted her. Because when you give someone your trust, then oftentimes they'll want to return the favor. And it was very dicey because she was offering to bite and kick and twirling around and rearing up. And it was kind of a scary situation. But instinctively, I knew that I had to show her that I trusted her. So I walked into her stall and she was racing around and kicking and bucking and rearing and screaming and charging and biting at me. And I stood in the center of her stall and I closed my eyes and I kept saying, "You have my trust. You have my trust. You have my trust." My husband was going, "Ellie, get out of there. That is so dangerous." And I was like, "No, I have to do this." Mm-hmm. And what was interesting is she was doing all kinds of posturing and offering, but she did not touch a hair on my head. And that was very intentional, right? She wanted to show me how angry she was, and she actually didn't want to hurt me.
Wow.
And as I sat there with my eyes closed, offering her my trust, she de-escalated until finally she stopped what she was doing, stood in front of me, put her mouth on mine, and we breathed each other in.
Wow.
That was the beginning of her healing.
Wow.
We worked for the next 4 years. What happened to her, she was savagely abused under saddle. So the man wanted her to do cattle roping with him, but she okay, Jennifer is not in the room and that shadow just passed behind me.
Okay.
And Sharon is sitting at her desk and has not moved. Oh, hello, Whisper. If anybody that is watching saw that shadow pass behind me, there is no one moving in the office. So I think that is Whisper saying hello.
Hello, Whisper.
Valid. There it is again.
There it is again.
Anyway,
We're having a shadow phenomenon. For those of you who are watching and not just listening, we've been having a shadow move with it somehow in Ellie's room, even though no one is moving. There is a shadow that has been walking back and forth. We were deciding whether we should tell you this story, but now I think we have to tell you this. But go ahead to finish Whisper's story.
so for the next Whisper was savagely abused under saddle, and this man wanted her to rope cattle with him. But prior to meeting him, she had never met a cow in her life. And instead of giving her time to figure it out or to teach her, he just sat on her and gave her commands that she didn't understand. And when she didn't follow the commands, he beat her silly. She started fighting back because she's a fighter. And every time she fought, he would hurt her even worse. And it became just this snowball of trauma. So once I gave her my trust and she softened and we breathed each other in, we embarked on a 4-year journey of sitting on her, asking her to do tiny little things that of course she knew how to do, like take a step forward, take a step to the left, take a step to the right. But instead of following those instructions, she was triggered from her trauma and she would explode.
Mm-hmm.
And it gave us an opportunity to sit very quietly on her and say, tell us more. And she got to buck and rear and kick and scream and bite and twirl around and speak with her body and talk about her anger and her trauma and her sadness and her pain, while we very quietly just sat on her and let her tell us what she had inside of her. And little by little, the more she got to do that, the more she expressed herself, the softer she got, the quieter she got, until after 4 years, she literally had said all of it, and there was no more trauma left inside of her. And the very, very last day, we brought her out of the barn. She said, oh, here we go again. But instead of saddling her up and doing the exercises with her, I took her halter off and I said, Whisper, you're free. You will never be ridden again. No one will ever harm you or objectify you ever again as long as you live. You're free, you're seen, you're heard, you're respected, and we will honor you till the end of your life. And she kind of looked at me like, really? Are you sure? Are you serious? And I said, yes, you're free. And she went off and she grazed on the grass. And her and I had the most extraordinary rest of her life. What I would do was I would take her out on the walking trails. And when we passed that very last house, I would take everything off of her and set her free. And I would walk and she would graze. And then she would lift her head and realize that I had walked on, and she would gallop to catch up with me. And I walked beside her like a dog, with nothing on her. And she grazed and she galloped and she played and we ran together and we explored together. And her and I had a relationship unlike any other relationship I've ever had with any other animal in my entire life, because it was not about riding her or controlling her or training her. It was about both of us, all feet on the ground, side by side, exploring the world and having an equal relationship. And it was so beautiful. So at the Gentle Barn, we work with a lot of angry teenagers, right? Who have been told to sit down, shut up, and follow the rules, who have been mirrored that they were bad, unwanted, and unlovable, who are incarcerated or recovering from being in gangs or drugs. They've had really, really hard pasts, and they've been mirrored from society at large that they were didn't have any value. And Whisper was so instrumental in their recovery because they would come to the Gentle Barn. They avoided eye contact. They had their arms folded across their chests defensively. And all I had to do was tell Whisper's story, and they immediately identified with it. They immediately saw themselves in her shoes. And by telling Whisper's story and loving her so much, they knew that I accepted them and didn't judge them. And of course, after telling her story, they always wanted to meet her. And she was their hero, modeling that expressing anger is so important in their healing journey. And after you express your anger and you heal, then moving on and finding your own family and your own tribe and your own happily ever after is possible. And she inspired them to do it in their own lives. And she did such good work at the Gentle Barn. She was one of our healthiest horses. She was at the time 26 years old, but she had a full body. She was a quarter horse. So she had this big, gorgeous, big black butt and this muscular body, this beautiful face, this little pink spot on her nose that I love to kiss. And she was doing great. She was eating. She was doing wonderful. And one day I was down in the barnyard and she looked at me and she said, "Please spend some extra time with me. I don't have much time." And I was like, "Oh my God, Whisper, you're perfectly happy. What are you talking about? You're so healthy." And she was like, "Just trust me. I don't have much time left. Please spend time with me." So of course I did. And a week later, she colicked.
Wow.
And for those of you that might not know, colic is a stomach ache in horses, but it could be a twist of the intestines. It could be a tumor wrapped around the intestines. It could be an impaction, and it can very often be fatal. So we took her immediately to the hospital. They rushed her in for emergency surgery because she did have several tumors wrapped around her intestines. She walked out of the surgical suite and into the recovery room, and when she was in the hospital, I was able to walk her, take her out for walks in between the orange orchards and the beautiful eucalyptus groves and the olive trees. I was able to spend all day long for months in the hospital. We bonded so completely. And then after a few months, she colicked again, and there was nothing else they could do to save her. And we had to help her out of her body. But the fact that she was warning me that her end was coming, the fact that we were able to spend that uninterrupted time at the hospital, just me and her for months, it was such a gift. And I will always be grateful for the relationship that we had, the deep connection that we had, and all the hundreds, if not thousands, of teenagers that she saved just by sharing who she was and her story.
Yeah, it was just absolutely beautiful.
And she would be turning 29 on May 1st. And I just missed her and I love her. And I'm glad that she joined us today.
I'm so glad she joined us today. And it's amazing because once you started telling her story, we had no more movement in the background, no more shadows. So you've been seen and heard, and many more people are going to be hearing this story of Whisper. Thank you, Whisper, for visiting us in this powerful way. And yeah, beautiful, beautiful. Well, let's see. Let me pick a story. There was a client I was working with, doing some animal communication. She had rescued a dog that had probably been in a puppy mill situation. So this was a dog that was really very shut down, would not leave the house, not even to potty, just really rough ride. She was a senior, very loving, but she had it was tough because the dog was too scared to do anything, really just wanted to sleep in her bed. And at one point, she was having her doubts about whether or not she could handle this. And the dog, Sophie, said to her in a voice she could hear, she said, Sophie, the dog said, "Don't give up on me." And that was the turning point, and now she's at a point where mostly she'll go out to potty and, some progress, we can put a harness on her and, she can play and do some different things, but she's never going to be, like some other dogs. This is not like the vet has to come to her. She can't get in the car or anything like that, but she is the most amazing dog. So sometimes I'll talk to her and I say, Sophie, how's it been going? And she'll go, "Oh, I'm busy." And that's like, okay. So I think I told you this story that she took us on a little journey. I said, "So tell us what you've been up to." She visits with other animals, and she took us to see the cows. And she put us in the center of all these cows, and they came and licked her. The cows licked her just as cows do. And such a beautiful inner life. She has this. I mean, we call her Sophie the Buddha because she's just externally, she doesn't appear to be having much of a life, but if you find out what she's up to, it's very, very rich. And one day, her person said to Sophie, said, So, I had to tell you, the person bought her this expensive toy, and she's on a budget, but she bought her this expensive duck. It was like a $60 toy because she loved it, this duck. And she gave it to Sophie. Sophie was like, like no interest in the duck, right? She has some toys, but this $60 duck meant nothing to her. But it was Sophie's birthday. And it was the person's birthday. And she said, Sophie, what are you going to give me for my birthday? She said to the dog. And the dog said, you can take the duck. Take the duck. Oh, that was funny. There's such depth of understanding. And, Sophie will often say things to us that just makes us laugh. She just has this sense of humor. And it's so interesting because externally you would say this is not much of a life. She doesn't meet any other dogs. She doesn't go anywhere, but she's got quite a beautiful world, that's really something. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that story. That is so beautiful because it really is true. Animals in particular. I think humans can astral travel too, but I think that we're less likely to do it because we're so entrenched in this physical world. But animals, that is part of their makeup. They are constantly meditating, going other places, connecting with one another, talking to the birds, and the birds tell them what's going on out in the world. They know things that you would never realize that they know. As a matter of fact, our cows, when people walk into the cow pasture and they're wearing leather shoes, they're always surprised that the cows come over and lick their boots. And it's like, because they know what leather is. They know that was a cow. They know that animals are being slaughtered. They know that people are struggling out in the world. Even though they're in a little pasture, they have a worldwide understanding and view of what is going on in this human planet, and they want to help.
Mm-hmm.
Many, many times I will talk to my clients' animals, and they'll show me, like, I spend so much time sleeping because I can go places and my body can move faster than it can in real life. Sometimes they tell me that they're on the other side, meeting friends over there, preparing for their transition. I have a 16-year-old dog named Bingo, and he used to be very, very active, walking, hiking, swimming, going to the beach, following us around, sitting in our laps, cuddling. And recently, I would say over the last 6 months, definitely, if not over the last year, he has taken to having these very, very, very deep sleeps, extraordinary deep sleeps. But it's not the kind of sleep where if you make a noise, he wakes up. It's the kind of sleep where it's so deep that there are several times where I'll come and try to wake him up because I'm leaving the room or I'm leaving the house and I need him to wake up. And I'm petting him and he is not in his body. He is somewhere else. He is interacting with other beings. He is not in his body. And no matter how much I talk to him and pet him, he will not wake up. And I have to wait for like 30 minutes. And then 30 minutes later, he'll come back to his body and he'll come find me and he'll be like, I'm so happy to be back. I'm so happy to see you. This is where I was. And he'll tell extraordinary stories of travel.
Yes. It's amazing. Well, this has been absolutely delightful. I think we'll have to do this again because I know we've only tapped the beginning of all of our stories. So this has been so delightful. So Ellie, how can people find you if they want to connect with you or support you?
Well, to find out more about my animal communication and the energy healing that I do for maybe your pet, you can go to ellielaks.com. And to find out more about the Gentle Barn, come hug a cow, cuddle a turkey, give a pig a tummy rub, and find out for yourself how amazing these rescued animals are, please go to gentlebarn.org. And of course, we can be found on all social media platforms as well.
Well, thank you so much for being a part of our Human Animal Connection podcast. And if you were watching, I hope you got to enjoy the shadow. That's been really fun. Well, thank you so much. We'll see you in the next episode. Bye for now.
Thank you for tuning into the Human Animal Connection Show. Please visit our website, thehumananimalconnection.org. There you can sign up for our free email newsletter, book a consultation, or check out our blogs and resources. Our best-selling book, The Human Animal Connection, is available on Amazon. And your donation of any amount keeps our nonprofit organization providing life-changing services.
Let's Talk Pets, every week on demand, only on PetLifeRadio.com.